Very good evening to you all around the country, or indeed the world, wherever you're watching. This is round 7 of Apex Rear Wings Caterhams series, coming to you live from Sao Paulo in Brazil as we try and set a new record for heat tomorrow in my hometown of Adelaide, and our illustrious championship leader Xeris tonight going possibly for the record of most wins in a row by an Apex Rear Wing driver. Currently sat on 7 in a row and could equal his own record of 9 wins in a row tonight. My name's Stairs, and joining me in commentary tonight is Ben Rhodes. As always, pleasure to have you with me.
Good to be back again this week. Stairs, nice to be home as well for a change.
Yes, in more familiar surrounds, I trust.
Yes, Tassie was good, Bright was good the week before, but yeah, I've come back and I was meant to be avoiding the heat, and it's just not stopping. I think it's had a week straight nearly of heat over here as well.
Yes, I think you've come back just in time for a few days of 40 degrees, so courtesy of Adelaide, no reply paid envelope with that one.
Thank you, Adelaide.
Well, we'll enjoy it first, but we'll take a few degrees off the temperature before we send it your way. But let's have a quick look at the point situation going into tonight. As I mentioned, Xeris dominating the series, and 2 wins last week puts him up onto 295 points out of a possible 300, with Brendan Foley in 2nd place. That's looking ever more secure, with Berto on the move up there in 3rd place from Goofball Antics. Sam Smith in 5th place after missing the previous round. Madbird in 6th ahead of Decimage. Lewis Weddings missed a few rounds of the championship now. Resist, Bagsy, Roadhog and Nether rounding out the 12, and Pablo and Tyrrell the 2 not on that list. Let's just have a quick look at the championship calendar. Those are the rounds that we've had in towards the back end of last year, and these are the rounds to come. So just 3 rounds remaining after this round, round 7 of course, the 23rd of January, and that's the circuit, of course, the Grand Prix layout of the Interlagos circuit, 4.3 kilometres, and will be 2 12-lap races for a total race distance just over 102 kilometres for the night.
Yeah, it's good to be back down sort of south of the equator, down to Interlagos now. Good to be to a circuit that we sort of know again. I suppose anyone that follows F1's me pretty familiar with Interlagos. That was actually my introduction to it, was the Formula 1 series of games, but it's my first time seeing it without an F1 car on it, so this should be fun.
Yeah, compared to some of the other circuits that we've been doing in this Caterhams series, it's a fair bit wider. It's probably not particularly wide by F1 standards, but it certainly looks like a big sea of tarmac when you're out there in those fairly small Caterhams. Yeah,
it's a big circuit, very wide, and as you'll see as you start to look off the left side of the front straight, if some of the camera angles pick it up, it's actually very lot of elevation change in this circuit as well.
Absolutely, using a lot of the natural contours of the land, part of one of the largest cities in Brazil, Sao Paulo, but they've found this nice little green lung in the city. I guess it's been around for quite a while, and the circuit dating back into the I think it was the 1970s actually that it was built. It's gone through a few transformations in that period, and the current layout, barring a few minor changes, has been in use since the early 90s.
Yeah, actually, I had it sitting here somewhere. Interlagos dates back to 1940, actually, was the original running of it. And it was actually spoken of in the 1930s, then the Depression hit, so they had to wait 7 or 8 years till the money came back. But yeah, 1940 was when the space was first built.
It's a wide-ranging depression, that costing, probably causing a lot of things throughout the world to be delayed, not least of which this fabulous circuit that I'm sure has absolutely no resemblance to what it did in the 1930s.
Yeah, it's the original circuit. I looked at it actually. The original circuit, which we are using parts of today, and you can still see the original parts that haven't been turned into runoff or the like, used to be longer than what Spa currently is. So it was very much of a go-kart track. There were a lot of folding back on itself. It's similar in a way to Polar Manic that we raced at last week.
Lots of very flat-out sections. Let's have a look at the onboard from Tyrrell as he goes down through turn 1. This is the an example of the change of undulation, the undulating territory, the change of elevation that this circuit has downhill through the Center S is very, very important corner that. It leads onto this fairly long straight, which will be one of quite a few slipstreaming opportunities that we'll anticipate tonight. Going down into turn 4, they call this corner Descida de Lago, which is Portuguese for the lake descent into Lagos, of course, being meaning in between the lakes, which is a nice geographical descriptor for you. Going back uphill towards Ferradura, and this uphill double right-handed going into turn 6 and 7 and down into turn 8. On your left there you can see that great big wall. The pit entry is behind that as Tyrrell goes very, very wide there into the marbles. That's going to cost him quite a bit of time, and it's very, very technical infield section with a lot of camber on it. It means you can carry quite a bit of speed even though they're really quite sharp corners. And then down into this turn 11 hairpin, and then you start plunging down the hill, the final 2 real corners, and this one coming up here, Junsao, or Junsao, I'm not exactly sure whether it's a hard or a soft J. Very, very important corner. Tyrrell's cut the grass on the entry there. He's probably taken, probably turned in a little bit too early there, but the rest of the lap should be flat out if you get the line right. I think Tyrrell just had to lift there for a little bit because he didn't quite nail the line, but again, very, very long straight, another important slipstreaming opportunity, and of course not using the cafe chicane, so flat out all the way down to turn 1.
Yeah, it's a long circuit to work around the space. I just wanted to add in that Interlagos, the name came from the urban planning designer for this area back in the 30s. He was from France, and the area reminded me of a place called Interlaken in Switzerland. So that's where the Interlagos came from, is just a direct translation of Interlaken, or Interlaken.
Yes, of course, Interlaken being between the lakes. Looks like a final sector didn't count for Tyrrell. That cut of Junsao is probably the culprit, and his time has been disallowed. So regardless of what happens to anyone else, looks like Tyrrell's going to be starting from the back of the grid.
I'd say so, which is unfortunate. He is still, relative to everyone else here, especially, he's a rookie in terms of the game and in terms of the racing and whatnot. But he is working away on those gaps, and he is bringing it down to, I think he's sitting, you know, at this point he was sitting like something like a second and a bit off of.
Ooh, big moment there for Bagsy. He's got to keep going because he's going to be ahead of Tyrrell and anyone else who makes a mistake. He caught that. But yeah, it's certainly going to cost him time.
That was going, and then it was caught, and it was going, and then it was caught, and yeah, that was. It took a long time to get that, but I'm happy he caught that.
Yes, I'm sure, as is he, and it's quite a quick lap around here actually. I mean, F1 cars do this in about 1:07, about 40 seconds longer in these cars, but nonetheless it's a lot of flat out sections and very, very fast radius corners. Let's see what Bagsy's gonna do in terms of setting the benchmark for us. 48.9 is the time to beat.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember back to what was the top end qualifying. I actually wasn't paying attention. It was interesting. I normally would pay attention to what the fastest time was, but I was too busy looking at the gaps. There was
45.5 from Xeris.
That's what it was, yeah, 45.5. So, yeah, I'll talk about it later. There was some really close gaps between some of the drivers in practice.
Brendan Foley clonking the curbs through the Center S, giving them absolutely no respect whatsoever.
No, Foley, yeah, I think Foley just lack of time in practice this week. He is normally further up the field, but he has a chance to pull that off in qualifying. I don't think that's going to track because he went around the outside of that curb. But yeah, he hasn't a lot of time to practice, so it's really all down to what he does on this lap.
Yeah, he's done the cafe chicane version of this circuit in AMS also. That's a nice looking slide. But he hasn't done this version of the circuit, as he really, really hangs a tail out through this infield section. So the fact that a lot of these other guys, during the silly season, this track has been used quite a few times, so perhaps the other guys with their track knowledge has made itself quite evident during that practice session, and that's why that probably assisted them in being further up the order than Foley, because Foley is generally up there in practice.
Yeah, so that's the thing is that
Whoa.
Whoop, yep. So even silly season, depending on how you take it, you can still pick up a lot of experience out the track. For example, if we ever go back to Mendig, I think some of the guys might get some pace there from the same trucks. But yeah, coming across the line in about 10 seconds.
And of course, everyone who joined back in the Valhalla Gamer era would have known the track from the days of the F1 Codemasters games. But Brenton Foley, 1.3 seconds faster than Bagsy for the time being. He sets the fastest lap of this qualifying session, but my goodness gracious me, was it an aggressive lap?
It was, yeah. The gap was. I don't think the gap was that big in practice, so he's potentially going to have jumped a few people. That might not put him up the front though, with Zirus's 1:45 in practice,
No.
but that will have helped to stem some of the loss that he gained by the potential lack of practice before the racing commenced this week.
I think that Foley might struggle with this circuit tonight. He has shown quite an aggressive style throughout most of this series, but I think that's a lot more advantageous on those sort of shorter, tighter circuits where you can kind of muscle the car through the corners, just wrestle it and gain time under braking and all that sort of stuff. This circuit, I think, requires a little bit more finesse, long corners which require you to keep your momentum, and that sort of oversteery style probably not as effective here. And dare I say it, may well be more effective to someone like Zirus. Not that he has a weakness in these cars, it would appear.
Yeah, this circuit, the first and the last sector are both very high-speed sectors. In the middle one, while there is some slow corners, it is all, yes, exactly, very flowy, very wide track. So it encourages and it promotes better the smooth flowing outside apex, inside apex, exit the corner lines, rather than the just slap it in there backwards and hope it sticks sort of approach.
We saw with Roadhog through the first sector he was 6/10 up on what Foley managed, but then only 2/10 up after the middle sector. So that goes to show that the Foley's style is quite effective in the infield, but not in the first and possibly the last sector, as Roadhog shortens the track as much, going to the left-hand side. He gains a little bit through that final sector on Foley to take provisional pole. And so first and last sector, the points most obviously that Foley's losing out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's something that he's gonna. It depends whether he's gonna change his style to come the race, seeing everyone else running away from him, doing it a bit smoother, or whether he's just going to not necessarily adapt, but just try and shove through and just see if he can drag some speed out from his style, in an alternative manner to the way everyone else is doing it.
Well, now there's the next man on track, and that is a small amount, but it's in the right direction. If your name is Nether, he's green by 0.03 of a second over Roadhog.
Yeah, Nether was one of the guys in practice towards the end that was having what I believe is called a bee's dick difference to the car either in front of him or behind him. I think the smallest gap he had to, I think it was resist, was something like a 0.003 of a second. But of course then everything changed around. But Nether was the first into the session. I beat him in by I think about a minute, but he was the first in the session. He's got 40 laps down, and he was sitting in the top 5 very consistently until the last 2 minutes when everyone banked their hot laps. But he's got the experience. He doesn't look too shaky. I mean, he did drop down to 8th or 9th in practice, but he was up there at the front for a long time. So this might mean that he's potentially flicked a switch and his pace has come to him, and will continue on from the pace he had last week.
Yeah, well, we saw him nab a podium last round. Actually, we saw him nearly nab a podium last week. It was only one tiny little mistake that cost him, but he was running strongly throughout the majority of the first race and finished 4th, which was far and above any other result he's managed this season. So he'll be eager to chase similar sort of success this week. And, oh God, that is unbelievably close. He'll be disappointed with that, I think, but. Nonetheless, he's up there, but he misses out by the barest of margins over Roadhog, so 0.16 of a second. Roadhog just a bit stronger in the final sector, it would appear.
And that's one of the issues with the long straights is that you make one little error, like we talked about at places like the American one. I forget what it's called, you make errors, little tiny errors. Virginia, yes, tiny little errors out of the out of the exit of corners before long straights, and they magnify massively, and they turn into maybe a second gap at the end. So you stuff up the hard J soft A corner. I forget what it's called. You stuff that up a little bit, and it carries the pace all around to the back to start finish line.
Well, Madbird's dropped a couple of tenths through this first sector, and he won't be particularly pleased with that if that trend continues, but I think if he attacks this middle sector, he may well be able to find some of that time back. That was much cleaner than we saw Nether do through that particular corner, but it looks clean. Is it fast though?
Yeah, Madbird spent a lot of time. Actually, it was weird. After the last couple of weeks where he's been coaching Decimage, it stopped this week. There was a coaching pair, but it wasn't these two. So I think maybe he's worried that Decimage is getting too close to him in the points, and he's focused back on the title. But yeah, he was another red sector there, so he might be dropping in behind Roadhog.
So who was the coaching pair this practice session then?
It was Resist and Tyrrell.
There you go. The new teaching the newer, as Madbird 420 blaze it behind Roadhog, and that's not particularly what he was after, as it's dropped him in between Foley and Bagsy down there in 4th place, and he will want to be a bit higher than that.
Yeah, that was. That was. I don't know. It might just be again all being used to what is more or less sort of. Not goat track isn't quite the right word, but more like go-kart tracks compared to this big sweeping expansive tarmac. It's not natural for a lot of them, especially having raced here now, or raced in this style for 7 rounds, to actually use the track. And evidently the 9-minute practice session hasn't been enough to reset their habits to more sort of GT and sort of supercar racing where you've got the space to work with.
Yeah, and of course you don't want to change your habits too much, because we'll be back to something different next round, and
exactly.
They certainly, they want to adapt insofar as to get a result tonight that is good for them, but of course they don't want to completely reinvent themselves and it be detrimental for them when they do next round, which is back to quite a tight, twisty sort of circuit at Cadwell Park. But having said that, it is undulating, so there is that it shares with this circuit. But Resist, it's very, very close here, 600ths of a second as they come out of the second sector.
It is, yeah, 0.064 in the second sector, and it's all going to be about how he exited that last corner. And I mean, even stuff like pulling out this wide could affect his time, but it looks like it hasn't.
Not at all. He's found time through that final sector. That is going to be a lesson to the others in how to do the final sector, because he found a fair bit of time through there.
Yeah, he picked up another. Well, basically, he went almost 3/10 at the gap at the end there. So I don't know, maybe pushing it wide to where the rubber is rather than going the inside to where there's shorter track but less rubber is actually better for the car stability-wise, which means you keep the speed up, or I don't know.
Half a tenth faster than the best lap that he did in practice, so Resist coming good in this practice session. Meanwhile, Sam Smith is way off the pace so far. He actually did an identical lap time to Resist in the practice session. To the
that was
second.
Yeah.
But
that was what I was about to mention. Yeah, that was it had the timing stretch further, they probably would have been separated. But that was a bit of a fluke, that one.
It doesn't look like he's giving us his best work in this session though, for Sam Smith, unless he pulls out an absolutely almighty middle and final sector. It's going to be quite a mountain to climb at the moment, looking like he might drop in there behind Nether and ahead of Brendan Foley.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can remember at least far back that Sam wasn't with us last week, and I don't think he was with us the week before either. So it's just probably a case of you need to keep up in these cars week on week to set the baseline pace, and Sam hasn't had a chance to do that in the past couple of weeks, so he is just falling back from a lack of bankable experience in the past couple of weeks.
He's lost another half a tenth or so through the middle sector. He seems to have peaked the gap somewhat, but he's only just ahead of Brendan Foley as it stands. Brendan Foley, of course, had a bit of a moment out of the final corner, so Sam will have to have had a fairly bad final sector to not finish ahead of Foley. Oh my goodness,
Ooh.
He's had an awful one. I don't know where he
Yeah,
lost. He's actually lost another half a tenth to finish 1.2 seconds adrift behind Madbird by quite some margin there. So
yeah, I don't know what happened there.
must have
Whether he
braked
got
really early somewhere.
yeah, it didn't look like he got a wheel spin or any issues, or he looked like he was pretty flat to the floor on the way out of the last corner. So I don't know, maybe on the inside affected it, or yeah, I don't know what happened there.
Deary me, well, you can tell that my analysis isn't worth the paper that it's printed on, but nevertheless, we'll move forward to Desamaj turning in slightly too early for turn 2, but we'll see what he brings to the table. Madbird will be eagerly hoping that he puts a wheel wrong. So far, not too bad for Desamaj. We'll see, of course, what the timing... Well, there you go. The timing is very, very favourable for Desamaj. 2 tenths up on resist so far, and that is a good start to that lap.
Yeah, it's and I'm interested to see how he comes out of the middle sector. It seems to be a defining characteristic for this track because it's not all fast. This track, it's all wide, but it's not all fast. And you've got to really switch your approach for the ideal lap. Switch your approach from very fast, smooth driving through some of the faster sectors to maybe a little bit more of a point and squirt in the shorter stuff if that's where you get your speed. But yeah, the other annoying thing in a little bit is the placement of the sectors. They're quite far off evenly done sectors. The last sector's quite short and the middle sector's quite long, so it takes a little while to get to see whether he's actually been able to use this sector most efficiently.
Yeah, so the lap's nearly done by the time we actually have an indication, but he has dropped time through that middle sector, and he's definitely dropped time through that final corner as well. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as good as Resist, who absolutely nailed it. So
Yeah,
down by half a tenth through the middle sector. What is it going to be at the line?
Yeah, it went from 2 tenths up to nearly a tenth back. So yeah, dropped quite a bit of time there. Whether he's pulled it back, we'll see.
Not at all. Down to 6 behind Madbird. Well, such small margins this qualifying session is decided by. At the first sector, he was looking good for pole, but in the end, only 6th. And, well, that's interesting because he was 4th fastest in practice and trading fastest laps with Madbird for a fair portion of that practice session. He might just have got the better lap on on the fresh tyres with the low fuel towards the end of that session when the track was all gripped up, and Madbird might not have done that, whether he did that to sandbag or whether he just did it because he just didn't manage to get the opportunity to set a fast lap. But those two, again, you can't separate them. They're qualifying within tenths of a second of one another.
Yeah, and I mean, this qualifying session is putting out some weird ones. Some cars are finding the speed, and some cars aren't, and they're quite obviously not finding the speed. So Berto's up now. He finished 3rd best in practice, and I think it was a fairly healthy dose above those behind him as well. But
he's absolutely flicking the weight around in that Caterham through that infield section. I didn't manage to catch the first sector time there, but Berto was 2nd for most of that practice session. Goofball Antics just jumping him towards the end in terms of their fastest time, but we've got a couple of corners before we get to see his split through the 2nd sector, and it's up by a margin, 5 tenths of a second here. Now we're starting to get some real heavy hitters come, and Resist has watched many unable to beat his lap time. I think in this case he's going to see Berto obliterate that time.
Yeah, touch wood, that's the biggest sector margin we've seen to the car behind them so far in this qualifying session. So unless he stuffed it up, he's going to the top.
He lost a bit through the final sector, but he still had a huge enough margin that he can still find 4 tenths of a second over the course of the lap to put himself up into provisional pole.
Yeah, that was I missed parts of that because stuff on my end, but that was a good lap to put that down, and to finally pit Resist has benefited a lot from other people's mistakes or errors in this session, but yeah, that the Resist will be maybe crossing those fingers that I was going to say, but actually that's quite close for Goofball.
It is. He used all of the track and then some coming out of the Center S right up over the curb, and it's paid off because he was able to carry enough speed. Obviously down that straight, that pays off all the way down to turn 4, and he was up by 200ths of a second. He was a little bit, probably a little bit crossed up coming into turn 4 though, so let's see if that's cost him any time.
Yeah, I'm just wondering now, looking the way each driver's pulling times out of this track. I'm wondering if he does, where Zirus, who comes after this, is going to find the speed, because everyone else is struggling to, and it's not even relative. It's relative to some of their own times as well. They're struggling to find the speed in this. So it'll be interesting to see how Zirus goes. But yeah, Goofball about to come up to the second sector split.
I think given such a wide track and it's a wide racing line, it certainly gives you many opportunities to do different lines. Goofball's found more time through that middle sector. That was clean and smooth, and the man who's become quite a qualifying specialist in these cars is doing it again.
Yeah, it's if we can expect a similar drop off as some of the other guys have had through this final sector, he's still going to be sitting on pole by 2/10.
And he uses that favoured shorter line to the line, and that is pole position provisionally for Goofball Antics.
Yeah, I think he lost lost a couple of hundredths there in the final sector, so he's found the line for pretty optimum pace there.
Well, Zirus is the one who has made it look so easy to this point. He's on 7 wins on the trot and has been on pole for the last last 2 rounds in a row for the first race, with Heathy taking the honours back in round number 4, Laguna Seca. But Zirus, well, that's about the same sort of margin that Heath had over Birdo.
Yeah, and we might see a change, and if there's change, it's going to probably be the biggest one in this middle sector. But yeah, not as big a gap as we're used to seeing from Zirus over whoever's sitting in provisional pole.
Well, you say that, but he's generally not. He's not obliterated them. Maybe not until the final sector, and certainly Goofball Antics has had a few goes as well. Brenton Foley, the only other man this season to sit on pole position, so he hasn't had it all his own way in qualifying this season. But of course, that tends to happen when you only get one opportunity and everyone else is going for it. Zirus may be playing the percentage game a little bit. He drives, and he's going to hate me for saying this, with a margin for error. It's become a bit of a meme among the lads, but it certainly pays off, and it's paying off now because he's nearly 3/10 up on Goofball Antics time. So he's just got to have a clean run to the line, which I anticipate he does, and he may well find himself in pole position in a few seconds' time.
Yeah, it looked like I would do a wobble over that last major corner exit curb, but yeah, otherwise it's been a very clean lap, and give me a second, we're going to see where he drops in.
Yep.
Oh, you could have a bigger gap there. I think I saw him just across the line, just swerve slightly, so I'm not sure what that was, whether it's an error on his end, but
I'm sure he would have had his delta, so he would have known how much he was up by.
Yeah, good point. So yeah, still good enough to be on pole by nearly 4/10.
Well, we're seeing the same characters starting to appear at the front of these qualifying sessions, and congratulations to Zirus on pole position there. Goofball Antics, one of quite a few front row appearances now, and getting used to starting from that lofty position. Birdo has also done pretty well, and he's fresh off a couple of podiums, a couple of second place finishes last week. So he's looking good, and his main rival Sam Smith starting all the way back in 10th, which was a surprise to see.
Yeah, I believe it was I lost slightly. I was looking at, but one of the sort of little success stories out of this as well. Resist came off well, Roadhog's come off well, Nether's come off pretty well as well. And it seems to always work. It's not just in racing, but in qualifying. Madburn and Decent Age find themselves as close to others as they can get.
Road Dogg's had a good qualifying session there too as well, up into 5th place, and we saw he got a fantastic start last week in race 1, and he got himself up into 3rd. I think he might have even been 2nd for a brief moment before an error cost him. We had a bit of a train developing in the early part of that race, but Road Dogs, watch out for him. He can be pretty good on the off the line. And this is a bit of a tricky start, this one, because of the undulation. There is a part of the grid that's uphill, part of it's downhill.
Yeah, there's the undulation, and as we'll see when the warm-up sessions, when the practice starts and warm-up session commence, I feel like the Centre S, especially on the first couple of laps, when we've got a big pack of cars, are going to be a little bit of a minefield to negotiate.
Yes, but I suppose they've gone through trickier tests And I think that what I'm looking forward to is when they get down to turn 4, because it's going to be an absolute it's going to be an absolute slipstreaming battle royale down this straight. Look how much space there is. You could probably fit, I reckon you could fit 5 or 6 wide down this straight if you absolutely had to.
Yeah, turn 4 is going to be interesting. You see a lot of, if we have enough of a slipstream train going, you're probably going to see the whole sort of fan out on the way into the corner, at least in the early laps when people are really trying to make a stake for positions. You might not see it towards the end, or at least towards the middle sector where they're having to be a bit more conservative and not risk doing something too silly. But those last couple of laps, again, you're probably going to see some people that are in a big battle pack. The whole thing's going to fan out when we hit turn 4.
And we can only hope that these long straights keep the group together for longer.
Yeah, exactly. They and that's the thing, is it allows also if you do get someone from the pack with someone else, like we take an example, not that they will, but Madbird and Dieselmatch, because they're always together. We'll take them example. If they can actually put aside trying to get a position over each other and work together, they will actually catch back up to the pack, because they can just slipstream off each other to catch the major pack, which will helping each other, but they will be slowing themselves down possibly even in the act of slipstreaming. So
and we've seen that time and time and again through this series, is that once 2 people get engaged in a fight, whoever's left ahead of them just disappears off into the sunset.
Yeah. So if they battle too hard and drop off the pack, but they're smart enough to see the bigger picture, or they're not so smart enough, but if they're capable of seeing the bigger picture and thinking, hey, if I give up a spot for a couple of laps here, I can then help my competitor gain some time up, and both gain some time up on those in front of us, and then we can both gain like 3 positions. But we'll see if that plays out.
Well, we're seeing the cars just gridding up for a practice start here in this warm-up session. I think Nether the only one opting not to take part in that, trying to do a bit more practice just lapping the circuit, as everyone else gets a bit of a look at this incline for the starting grid.
Yeah, it's also Nether and not Nether, sorry, Goofball and Bagsy sitting this one out.
Horns beeping for a practice start, couple of empty grid slots, and a fair bit of smoke as they get off the line. Looks like a fairly clean getaway for most of them. Foley looking to the inside there of Dieselmatch, and Madbird trying to hold them both off, and that's Road Dogg having a huge moment there. That was a good view that Madbird had of that one, and the door opens just a little bit. This is not real racing, of course, this is merely just practice, but boy oh boy, Madbird would love a door like that to open when the race begins. That was a couple of big wiggles there for Road Dogg. 4 wide! Sam Smith opting to jump out of that one.
Oh, that's Foley well wide there.
Absolutely is. He's managed to rejoin by the looks of it on the curb, using all of it and then some, like Goofball Antics did.
I was about to say exactly the same thing.
Seems to be okay. The circuit doesn't seem to punish them for such indiscretions. I suppose it doesn't see that as an indiscretion, apparently.
Yeah, I reckon not all parts of this track, especially the midfield sector, are very much more sort of regular track layout where there is runoff, and it will punish you if you go and join it. As Road Dogg goes to join it just to show me exactly how much it hurts.
Everyone has some work to do to avoid.
But yeah, turn 4 is very much sort of a what is it? Dubai, I think it is. Abu Dhabi, one of the Yas Marina. It's very much a Yas Marina style runoff where you can go off and not lose too much time, which helps because we're probably going to see some very optimistic mail posting down at turn 4.
Yes. It's a bit like a shopping centre car park there without the cars to obstruct.
And without the light posts.
No, nothing in the way at all. So people can go in there as gung-ho as they absolutely like. Good gracious me, Sam. No, sorry, that's not Sam.
That was Road Dogg. Yeah, speaking of gung-ho.
Sam's car looks nothing like that, but yeah, absolutely fanging it into that grid spot of his.
Yeah, he was really keen to get back there, but did a very good job not ping-ponging off everyone behind him on the way there.
Just catch this last this second practice start before we think about taking a quick break. A bit of a jump start for a couple of them. Not exactly.
Yeah,
a lot of
I
the
think
guys
some of the leaders there might have got a run.
Yeah, Xeris was a bit on his own there. There was a lot of cars not taking their spots further up the field, which is probably not the best for Xeris wanting to practice. Oh, gracious me, Raffolli's had a big spin there across the front of a few other guys. Worrisome. Saw Decimate on that previous lap doing a fair bit of opposite lock. I think he enjoys that.
Yeah, just further up, I was to see if this plays out or not. Nope, he doesn't go for a dive. And then there's random sudden Bagsy appears in the middle of the lead pack of 3.
Where did they come from?
Yeah, I think he's out just doing some laps, and they just the timing of it, they've caught him. So some lap traffic practice for these guys if they need it. But getting off. Oh, good point actually. Yeah,
if I know
they're all getting some battle practice. Oh, yes. And that was a send from Bagsy.
Didn't quite catch that. Just looking at Decimate, but as they finish the warm-up session, we've got about 4.5 minutes left, so we'll take a quick break before we start racing. We'll come back with your predictions. In the meantime, we'll just take you to some driver profiles statistics from the start of the season. They haven't been updated since round 1, so just bear that in mind. But on the other side of that, we will have all the pre-race. Welcome back to Interlagos. We're less than a minute away from progressing to the next session to grid up for the race, and we're just seeing a bit of action there between Xeris and Bagsy, doing some practice racing and now some practice colliding. And Not that that's anything to base your predictions on, but Rody, what would you expect to happen in this race? It's hard to go past Xerius, of course, for the win, but do you think you'll be challenged more so this week than others?
I think possibly there is the room, and this track has somewhat of a wider racing line to work with. It's not always the case with wide tracks where the racing line gets any wider, but especially on the straights, there's some room. It's going to be a lot easier, especially on the straights, to keep Xerius in touch with the rest of the field. He has every capability of bolting, and if he is committed to trying to shake slipstreams, he could do that. But for people like Goofball and Birdo and anyone else that wants to push towards the front, if Foley can find some speed, for example, they could keep him in touch. Whether they can catch him and pass him is another matter, but they should at least keep him in touch. And if you can wait, and if you can do it in a way that conserves the tyres a little bit, although tyres so much is a thing right now. We were talking last week after the race that it was really just the heat was getting to a lot of drivers. So if you're someone like Rodog, an example, who's based in New South Wales, he's avoiding the heat for the most part. If you're someone who's not where the heat is, you might be able to pounce on someone like Xerius, who is stuck in a 30, 40 degree pool of their own sweat kind of situation.
Yeah, and to update you on those situations, Xerius, of course, is in a poorly air-conditioned upstairs bedroom, which is very, very warm, and Madbird sharing a room with him there, so he'll have the same issues. Bagsy and Decimage also Adelaide based, so they have the same problems. I'm not exactly sure what their respective air conditioning solutions are like, but you mentioned Roadhog. He mentioned that his town is currently experiencing maximums of 25 degrees, which sounds absolutely blissful, or Arctic actually, compared to what we're experiencing here in Adelaide. So that is certainly going to be an advantage for him and any of the others. I believe Melbourne is experiencing fairly warm temperatures, but not quite as hot as Adelaide right now. So that's Nether and I think Berto, the only two Melbourne. And Ristis, of course, is also Adelaide.
Yeah, I think it's just those two, and then myself as well. But the heat's getting to me as well. I already flicked the aircon on.
Oh yeah, but you can't wait for tomorrow. Goofball Antics Brisbane as well, so I think he's used to fairly warm temperatures, but of course well equipped for it there in Brisbane. Xerius, let's go through the grid. Pole position. He mentioned last week after the race that it was a bit of an endurance test, these races in these conditions. I expect nothing different this week. Behind him, Goofball Antics, great qualifying as always from the Queenslander. Behind him, Berto in third place. This is quite a fast warm-up lap, I must say. Behind him is Resist in one of his best qualifying efforts, and he's had some fairly good battles with Berto of late. Roadhog up there in fifth place. Watch out for him on the start. Nether, pretty good qualifying for him up there in sixth. He's got a nice springboard to launch an attack, but of course he'll have to watch out for Brenton Foley, who's always good in the race. Second in the championship, but just didn't quite have the pace in practice or qualifying today, and he's just spun around and made a bit of a hash of that as he's found himself on the broadcast facing the wrong way, trying to find a gear. There he goes, he'll get his position back. Madbird had a fairly good eyewitness account of that. He is in 8th place ahead of his rival Decimage, who was looking good for quite a higher position. So he knows it's on the broadcast. Sam Smith starting behind him in a return that probably he wasn't expecting to be quite so low. His first sector time was the fastest at the time, but he ended up qualifying 6th, which then became 10th as others set their laps. Josh Bagsy in 11th place and Tyrrell in 12th place, who didn't register a time unfortunately because of a track cut in the final sector of his lap.
Yeah, so it's interesting to see where Tyrrell's basically comes out at, whether he's he will have, but how much he's chipped away against some of these some of the drivers ahead of him, and hopefully might see him. He didn't get lapped in the races last week. It'd be nice to see him battling into the middle sectors in the middle portion of this race as the race goes on.
Absolutely. Well, we are almost gridded up. Sam Smith, the last man to roll into his grid box, and the lights are on for round 7 of the Caterhams here in Sao Paulo. We are racing. cloud of smoke erupts from the starting grid, and it's a bit difficult to tell, but it looks like Xeris has the whole shot, and Birdo trying to come through, challenging Goofball Antics for second place. Resist got away well too, and behind him it's looks like a bad start, actually a good start for Brenton Foley, challenging Nether, and he's going to have the slipstream all the way down this down this main, or this back straight.
Yeah, Foley there down the outside of Nether, where they're actually. He's always trying to go on the outside of him. There's run out of room there, but that was very much almost. I mean, these guys did a similar move at last week.
Birdo's got by Goofball Antics. They had a bit of contact down into turn 4, and looks like Goofball Antics is trying to sneak his way up into the inside. They've already let Xeris go. He's 1.3 seconds ahead. Yeah,
as I was saying, it'll be interesting to see whether they can make this back up and down the straights. But yeah, Xeris has bolted, which doesn't really surprise many people at this point. But yeah, Xeris, you keep running away, you're going to get yourself less and less coverage. You know that.
Well, now Disamash attacking Madbird down the inside, Foley on the outside there. It's almost 3 wide through the infield. Probably weren't expecting the moves to happen so much there. I'm pretty sure that we're going to see Madbird fight back. He's going to have the slipstream down there. Sam Smith is waiting like a shark in the background there, and they're going to go 3 wide coming out of Yung Sao, and it's Madbird back in front by a nose as they come up the hill. They're already a few car lengths behind Brenton Foley, who's putting Nether under some pressure with Roadhog just ahead. Sam Smith just a couple of car lengths behind. D-Smash pulling out of the slipstream. Madbird was marginally ahead, but now it's D-Smash. It's D-Smash is going to have the inside coming into the S's. There's really no point defending this. You've got to work together at this point. It's too early in the race to be fighting so hard. And D-Smash, nearly gets his nose wiped off. Someone's gone off the track in front of him.
That was Nether, I think.
Oh, and he's not going to like me for replaying this, but we need to see what happened to him. And did he get assisted into that
I believe he did.
turn 1 braking zone? No, he's just done on it all by himself there by the looks of it, so that's unfortunate. He'll be frustrated with himself there. So he's taken himself out of a strong position. All that has promoted Foley up into 5th place. He's giving Resist an awful lot of pressure for 4th place.
Yeah, that was a mistake he couldn't necessarily afford, but I mean, this race isn't over yet. If he can recover himself up to some positions and he can maybe hop some slipstream up through some cars, he might still find himself in a decent finish.
Yeah, he's only a couple of seconds off Tyrrell and Bagsy's not too far up the road either, and Sam Smith is a similar gap up ahead, so if he can latch back onto that group, he could find himself climbing further up the grid. But Brenton Foley's made the move on Resist for 4th place, and that's Resist in 5th place. So that is the start that Brenton Foley wanted. What can he do about the men in front of him? Goofball Antics is just a second up the road.
Yeah, Goofball and Birdo as well. They're really starting to clear out anyone else behind them. They're the only cars up there with only like a second gap between each respective position. But yeah, Foley hasn't had the chance to show his speed yet. But if he's got the speed, he should be able to hopefully catch Goofball. You think something I'm not?
Yeah, got you off there because Sam Smith is bump drafting D-Smash down the straight there, and Madbird would probably be a little bit miffed about that. Roadhog's got himself involved here. He looks like he's recovering from something because he's going a bit slowly, and that nearly got in the way of this battle here, and it's probably not going to pose too much of a threat. They're going to drive all the way past him. Is Sam going to give D-Smash another bump draft? I think that is quite an intelligent thing to do. It almost would be beneficial to do a 3-car bump draft if you're trying to catch up to those ahead of you, because the straights are long enough. It really, really could assist you.
Yeah, cut back there for Madbird as D-Smash tried to dive down the inside. Yeah, it would benefit in a way down the straights if you're confident in the car stability, that sort of speed to bump draft. But yeah, as I said, it's about thinking about the bigger picture, and it looks like these guys are in as fun as it is to get further up. They're enjoying the fun of the little battles they're having right now.
Yeah, D-Smash just grabbed a fair bit of curb there, and that's cost him a little bit. Sam Smith as well has dropped a few car lengths to the Madbird in that exchange, and Roadhog's staying with them. So we didn't see what happened to Roadhog. Still a little bit too far back to try and find the replay of it. But this is turning out to be quite an exciting midfield battle.
Yeah, looking further afield, further afield up the field. Foley is, I think he's already in the slipstream of Goofball. What is a lap after we talked about whether he'd get any further up? So he's got the pace and he is using it. And yeah, I'm going to have to find some wood to touch, but possibly going to be another spot up, given this this time around another lap.
Fastest lap of the race from Xeris, but Brenton Foley set the fastest middle sector of the race in the previous lap. He's not going to set the fastest first sector, however, on this lap, because he's just gone deep there, as looks like Sam Smith's got by Madbird, so that's just happened in the last few seconds. Let's try and catch a replay of what happened there. Down the straight was where he did it, got himself in a good position, and just managed to last pass down the straight.
Yeah, I was going to say, I just double checked for you, that the fastest lap wasn't actually Xeris, the fastest lap was Foley, so he is the quickest guy out there, and he's got traffic to deal with as such, so...
it was, for a brief moment, it was
for a brief
Xeris,
moment,
but Foley
yes.
usurps that. Use my favourite word from a few rounds ago, but Sam is losing out now. Madbird has managed to get back through, and D-Smash side by side with him as well, and doesn't manage to get the job done. It's a three-car sandwich, and they're all in the same shot, and that's a pretty good achievement because it's a fairly tight camera angle.
Yeah, to fit them all into a TV camera's lens is pretty good. That was a little bit of rubbing there, I think, between Madbird and Sam Smith.
Rubbing, touch wood. Don't take your words out of context, but goodness gracious me, they certainly make sense in this context. Sam Smith's back ahead, and Madbird, in as many corners, has gone back 2 spots.
Yeah, it's a very lovely battle, this one, although Madbird seems to have dropped more than a couple of positions there. He's actually dropped a bit of time on D-Smash.
Sam's
and
wide
these
into
two,
the grass. Sorry,
yeah, since these two ahead of him might clear out on him, but they're battling as well, so I think he's slashed on the slipstream by the look of it of D-Smash, and he's coming right back into this battle.
Well, look at Madbird, he's charging, he's had a better exit than both of those ahead of him, but is there enough time down towards turn 1 to make the move? It looks like he is. Sam had a bad exit, D-Smash had a slightly better one, but Madbird had the best of all. It is 3 wide, and Madbird down the inside, he's going to get the job done. And I think they've basically given up. Oh, that's a huge moment there. I think Madbird was assisted slightly. He was spinning around, I thought, for all money. Got a little bit of a bump. It looked like that steadied him. He still lost out, but that was probably because he had to get out of the throttle. And in that, he's managed to lose the position to Roadhog, who's got by Sam in that entire exchange. And D-Smash is rubbing his hands with glee.
Yeah, we missed Roadhog entirely in that after him dropping off and sort of coming in the back of this pack a little while ago. I think it was after an error that we missed. But yeah, Roadhog's into this now. Now it's a 4-car battle. Oh, that was almost a bit of heavy contact there between Sam Smith and Madbird.
And a little bit more rubbing here. Just a bit of Morse code. Sam Smith. Oh my goodness, he's going to go for the inside there. No, he's covered off. But his braking accuracy is on point tonight. That was very, very close. He was basically 2 inches from the back of Madbird's car there on the brakes and not hitting him much. And I thought he was going to wipe him out there. He's seemingly able to control these things, and Madbird looks like he has more pace than Roadhog. D-Smash is still getting away in all of this. They're going to go side by side. Roadhog's given up on that one, and that's going to hamper Sam Smith, who has to give Roadhog room. But it looks like in that, he's still managed to get a slightly better exit than Madbird. He's going to get a nice little slipstream. And look at Roadhog too. They both want the slipstream. They're like 2 angry wolves fighting over their prey. And look at the prey that's getting away.
Yeah, they're fighting over the slipstream, and I think this fight has hurt them both. Although that said, now they've fallen the line, and it's too late now, I think, for Sam to get them both. But he's definitely... Oh, yep, here we go.
Roadhog's going to go for it, though, down the inside. Bit of a lock-up from both of them, and that was a little bit wide. Madbird was driving in his mirrors.
Hugely.
Yeah, he sure did. Madbird was looking in his mirrors, and where is he? Oh, he's still there. Goodness gracious me, he lucked out there. I thought he was going to lose a lot more time. But look at D-Smash stretching off into the distance. They need to work together, otherwise he's gone.
Yeah, the gap between Sam Smith and Madbird right now and D-Smash is the same as D-Smash and Resist. So, yeah, they're not careful. They're going to lose D-Smash in this.
Tell you what, though, Sam loves a fight. He'll be absolutely grinning from ear to ear at this battle. And he probably won't be too concerned that D-Smash is getting away. Probably much to Madbird's chagrin, because he certainly wants to get one up on old D-Smash in the points. But Sam Smith,
Ooh.
a little bit of rear quarter to front quarter panel contact there. Not that they're panels; they're basically open wheelers with mudguards. These cars.
Yeah, that's the sort of contact you really want to avoid unless it's really forced, because that's going to cause spins if you're not careful. Luckily, it didn't that time. Both in good control of their cars, but yeah, it's the fight hasn't. The fight's taken a brief lull, but it definitely hasn't stopped.
No, it certainly hasn't. Nothing much has changed. Oh, that's a huge moment there for Sam onto the grass. It's going to cost him a huge amount of time. Is it going to cost him the slipstream? It's cost him the position down into 8th. Is he going to lose to Roadhog as well? I think he may well do. No way that he's going to not look at Bags.
That's a bump draft.
Not that far off. Yeah, well,
that's a bump draft
that
from
Roadhog. That is going to be annoying for Madbird. He would have been hoping for that bump draft from Sam so they can try and catch up to Decimage, and that was very, very, very close.
Yeah, I think I'm learning something about Sam's line. I believe he's learned that he can technically use the extra piece of green runoff on the side of the straight as admissible track. So he is actually swinging right, almost 4 wheels onto that to widen his entry the first part of the center S's.
He can carry more speed doing that and keep his foot flat for longer, which is what we saw. Well, we saw that that kind of line was what we saw Goofbland's doing in qualifying, so he's obviously paying attention to that. They're all going wide onto the grass out of turn 4, onto the tarmac, I should say, off the tarmac onto the curbing to finally get it right. Well, that's a very, very wide line. And look at the angle. That really reduces the angle as they go through into this corner.
Yeah, so it's interesting the approach of actually connecting your corners, in that going out wide there would look weird if you're entering that corner or if you're exiting the last corner, but by using that as a line between the both, you're turning that into sort of one big sweeping corner, and you can maintain the pace a little better than sitting there and jumping on the throttle, jumping on the brakes. You're just sitting there just rolling through and probably having a better average speed through the sector.
Just seeing the end of an incident for Resist. He was running up strongly in 5th place, but he's had a major off somewhere and recovering to the circuit not too long ago. Looks like it was in the infield somewhere. What an unfortunate way for a strong running to not come to an end, but it certainly put him out of contention, back to 11th.
Yeah, that's a big off. Speaking a little bit further up the road, Nether is just past Bagsy, just dumping the slipstream on the way up the straight, so Nether recovering back up to 9th so far.
Don't expect Bagsy to give that one up without a fight, though. He's got a carrot to try and drag him up towards the guy's head. Roadhog's just 3 seconds up the road from Nether, so he could potentially find himself a few more positions to the good of where he is right now.
He definitely could. Roadhog, it looks, is a little bit off the battle, but if he joins, especially if he joins back up with them, they're really just floating a big carrot in front of Nether, and he is going to be able to take that carrot, because while this battling is great to see and it looks awesome, it is not helping their lap times. So if Nether can pluck a couple of good laps and these guys can battle as hard as they are, he might be back to where he was, or pretty close to where he was at the start of this race.
I'm pretty sure Sam is now bump drafting Madbird. It looked like he was pushing him up that hill. So the question is whether that actually improves the lap time or not and helps them to catch Decimage, because he's about 3 seconds up the road. There's 4 laps to go, but every little bit counts. The thing is that as the leading driver, you've got to recognise you're carrying a little bit more speed, and it certainly changes the speed that you can take the corners at, because your approach speed is that much higher.
Yeah, it seems like they are doing a bit of bump drafting, which helps, but it also seems that there isn't quite like I don't think they've commuted through Morse code, as it were, what their intentions are, but they've actually explicitly said it. So there has still been a bit of defensive driving from Madbird, and a little bit of, just opening the door or just poking your head through the door a little bit for Sam Smith. So they're getting a little bit of time, but they're probably just negating the time that they're spending. Oh, that was a closing speed and a half. Yeah, so this is going to help them, but if they're going to keep trying to drive defensive around each other and whatnot, they're going to negate their advantage that they're gaining by doing this.
Yeah, that last lap for Sam was 0.4 of a second slower than his best lap for this race. So that goes to show that it's really not assisting them that much, and he's fallen off the back a little bit on this particular lap. Maybe if anything, it looks like they're slightly closer to Decimage, It was a 1:46.9 the lap time set by Diesmage on the previous time around, compared to 46.4 from Madbird and Sam Smith. Identical almost to the thousandths of a second.
Yeah, they look like they've gotten slightly further away from Roadhog, but as I was thinking about saying that, Sam Smith got a little wobbly through turn 4, but they look like for the most part to be gapping out on Roadhog, who in turn seems to be getting ever slightly closer to Nether.
Yeah, Nether. Let's analyse his lap times. That is dramatic, actually. 46.6 for Nether, 47.4 for Roadhog, so he's catching him by about a second a lap, and he's 1.2 seconds behind him, there or thereabouts, so there's plenty of time left for Nether to catch and pass Roadhog.
Speaking of catching, Diesmage is getting ever-presently closer in the front windscreen of Madbird's car, so this battle might be about to recommence.
And meanwhile, Xerus has reclaimed the title of fastest lap of the race from Brenton Foley, oh so close to a 44.9.
Sam Smith just around the outside of Madbird there, so he got a mega drive with that slipstream, and yeah, they're too wide and they're getting closer to, as I say, closer to Diesmage. So this, he's up the inside.
Side by side.
Not like this, no.
Through turn 1, 2 and 3 isn't going to do it, but here we go. Is Madbird going to pull out of that slipstream, or is he going to assist Sam in the bump draft? He has opted for the former, and he is going down the inside into turn 4. So this battle is on. Diesmage will be very, very happy indeed to see that in his rear vision mirrors. So Madbird now with he hasn't got the job done, actually. He went back to take the racing line, and Sam went straight through that door, and Madbird in the very next corner has gone for the inside as well. He hasn't managed to get himself further enough alongside. He has on this occasion there, and there's a little bit of contact there. Sam gave him a little bit of room, but not much. Well, he gave him plenty of room, but Madbird kind of understeered, it has to be said. He had a fair bit of room to his inside, but no harm done, of course. And has there been an error for Diesmage? He looked fairly close. It might just be the foreshortening on this camera angle. Of course, the helicopter kind of flattens out the bumps. They come up towards the camera as they go up the hill. Sam Smith's actually gained a bit through this middle sector as another fastest lap of the race gets banged out by Xerus. Very, very consistent lap times.
Yeah, he's just chipping times off. I'm seeing there's a bit further up. Speaking of the guys at the front, Goofball and Foley hasn't quite escaped from Goofball, it seems. Goofball still hanging on the back of him, was nearly going to put a dive on him in turn 1, but was a bit far back and thought better of it. But I don't think the podium is quite set in stone yet.
Not at all, and that's Foley going to the inside there to defend this position. So has he made a mistake somewhere? It's not on the previous lap because his lap time looks fairly normal. Their fastest lap time, in fact their previous lap times are both very, very similar to one another. Brendan Foley's only about 1/10 of a second slower than Goofball Antics, but Goofball Antics senses a chance for a podium position here, and he's not going to give that one up without a fight.
No, yeah, that's still. I mean, to take away from our battle further down the pack, yeah, that's that one's still going down, and that's Foley's had the pace to pass him, but he hasn't got the pace to escape the tow that he is then giving Goofball. So yeah, he's got another a lap and a few corners, Goofball, to see if he can put himself back past Foley. And all he has to do is put himself back past once at the right moment, and he's got third.
Absolutely right, but he's just managed to edge away a little bit in this last half a lap or so that we've been watching Goofball Antics and Brendan Foley. Berto's not really out of danger from the standpoint of he can't afford a single mistake. He's still in that shot there, just disappearing, but he's certainly, if he keeps his nose clean, he's well safe. Xerus can afford a cup of tea and a ham sandwich, and he'd still win the race.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is the difference between the smooth approach that everyone else is taking and Foley's throw it around, hope it sticks approach. During that middle sector, which is just a lot of hairpins and slower corners, He's dynamite through there. But as soon as we get to anything near a straight and a fast corner, we already see that he's getting just that little bigger in front of Goofball. So I think across a lap, he's just making the edge on him, but it's only just. He is, yeah. Goofball's still grabbing the edge of the slipstream. So
that's wide for Folly. That's wide for Antics as well. So that must be the normal line. They didn't really look like they were panicking too much.
No, everyone's going out there at this point, I think.
Wider and wider.
Yeah, it reminds me of a high country race we did where we modified the course ourselves and put tyre barriers down to create a chicane. That chicane throughout the race went from a 1-car wide to a 3-car wide. We kept nudging it wider.
Yeah. That is the trouble with movable objects. As we turn our attention towards Xeris, who's just coming around the final sector right now. And we haven't really seen too much of him, as is customary for his wins. It's unfortunate for him. It's a Vettel style of winning, just absolutely dominating from the off and kind of being anonymous, banging out lap times, which is no mean feat in conditions like this. He said last week it was a test of endurance, and I think the way that he stays concentrated is by banging out those fastest laps, which came towards the end of this race. But take nothing away from him tonight. He is absolutely dominated, and he is the race winner. That is his 8th win in a row, just one away from equaling his own record set back in Season 2 in the stock V8s.
Yeah, Berto in second, Brenton Foley in third. Nearly caught him at the end there, and Goofball equidistant back from him in fourth. And the race is just finishing now for fifth place. Decimage fifth and Sam Smith sixth.
Yeah, Sam managing to stay ahead of Madbird, who just lost a little bit towards the end of that race. And Road Dogg managing to keep Nether at bay, so Nether's rate of closing didn't increase in the same sort of chunks that we saw it happen for, as Bagsy intentionally blows his engine up as he comes across the line to finish 10th. You can hear him downshifting and giving that Caterham engine inline four something to think about, as Resist comes home in 11th. A disappointing way to finish what was quite a strong qualifying and a strong running early on in this race. Unable to recover from that as Tyrrell comes home in 12th place. 1 minute and 10, so those times that he's off of the race lead are coming down in each race that he takes part in.
Yeah, he's only finished, what is that, 11 seconds off of Resist in that race, but Resist wouldn't have been there at that position if it wasn't for a mistake. But yes, he is slow chipping away. It was at no danger at this point of being lapped. I think he only finished, what does it work out to be? He's only just over a half a lap behind the leader there. So he is. It's not immediately obvious, but he is chipping away on that pace across a race distance. So yeah, possibly if he continues with this, I know we're talking a bit far forward, but into next season, if not in the next couple of races towards the end of this season, yeah, we'll definitely see him up there with Bagsy and Nether, and possibly up further with Road Dogg, Madbird and the like.
No changes of position in the championship after that result. Much of that owing largely to the fact that most of the people sort of finished roughly in a similar position to where they are in the championship, with Xeris extending his advantage at the top. He now sits on 320 points, ahead of Brenton Foley on 207. Berto is fairly safe in 174 points. That's his third second place finish in a row, so he'll be quite happy with that, I should expect. Just getting a bit of wind noise from your microphone there, Rhodey. Not sure why that is. And then Sam Smith in 6th place, 136 points. So he and Madbird having that good battle. He's slightly extended his gap over Madbird there. Decimage fair way behind in the points. He actually needed that result to try and close the gap to those guys ahead of him, so well done to Decimage. That was it was a hard fought battle, and when he had his opportunity to break away from them, he took it with both hands. An instant Resist now with 11, but that's 11th place. It actually puts him tied on points with Lewis Wedding, who's been absent for 4 rounds in a row now.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I'm interested to see if Lewis does get a chance to come back. He is a busy boy, unfortunately, but Yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether he gets a chance to come back. And then further back there, we've got Bagsy. What is he? He's on the. That's right, is Resist on the same score? No, it is
Yeah,
the same
Resist and Lewis
score
Wedding
as
tied on points.
Lewis
That's what I
Waiting
was talking
currently.
about. Yeah. And
Yeah,
Bagsy
Bagsy
not
3
far
points behind him. Road Dogg back another 20 or 25 points. Nether just behind him, and Tyrol Tyrrell has just in that last race pipped Pablo, who we unfortunately haven't seen since round 2.
Yeah, and that's 5 races for Tyrrell, 4 for Pablo. So it's basically it's hard to judge that one based on positions, because it's about his relative gap to the leader that's improving. Once once you start sim racing, as much as when you start anything, you find improvement in leaps and bounds, but it takes a while before that to show on the scoreboard. Of course, it's a law of diminishing returns. The more you practice, the less gains you find. But as you get up there, then you start to find yourself mixing it with the best. And we saw the same thing happen last series with Resist, sort of trundling around near the back in the early races, but by the end he was fighting it, and here he is. This race, of course, not as a great example of that, but certainly throughout a lot of the races in this series, he's been fighting his way through the field in fairly decent positions, and I reckon that he's on for a podium. He has a good chance of scoring a podium before the end of this season.
Yeah, exactly. It's very easy in terms of finding pace to knock off seconds, or even 5 seconds or 10 seconds. It's very hard to then knock down parts of seconds or milliseconds from there. I remember my second race at Sandown on the new tyres when I was racing my V. I think across Friday practice. No, I didn't do Friday practice. Sorry, it was did I? Can't remember. I did actually. I don't think I had money for it at that point. But I knocked off something like 10 seconds, I think, across the first day of racing between qualifying and the race. It's very easy to do that, but then trying to knock off a second or two from there to actually catch the driver in front of you it's just that much harder. It doesn't make sense in a way, but yeah, it's harder to make up smaller gaps in racing.
It's funny how a second in any other context seems like such a small amount of time, yet when it's displayed to you on a leaderboard, it looks like absolute eons of time.
I mean, it also depends on the racing you've got. If the racing is close, like we've got here, then it does look like such a big time when you can fit so many cars into a second. But you compare it to something, I think, you see it. Not so much GT. There is some racing, I can't pick it, but there is some racing I've seen. Through production, that's a good example that we've both seen in the States series. Here, a lot of different cars in there which have different speed, and at one track they might be pretty even, like say Phillip Island, but Sandown, which is more suited to the fast, big engine cars, you'll see them disappearing at the front compared to the smaller, more nimbler cars which have been huddled at the back. And there, and in a field like that, a second does actually look quite small, because you might have a gap between something like even first and second of a second in qualifying. But yeah, we got close racing here, and because it's all one make racing, that promotes that. So yeah, a second is quite a long way usually in racing.
Most certainly is. Well, it's we're in a practice session at the moment. A couple of minutes break, just because of the extreme temperatures that a lot of the drivers are dealing with. So that's why we're in this practice session, not quite in the warm-up yet. Gives drivers a chance to air out their sweaty t-shirts before they get stuck into another 12 laps.
Yeah, this is the not that anyone's possibly done the same mistake as me, but this was the regret I have from upgrading from a cloth or a fabric office chair to a leather office chair, is that when it gets hot, it really gets hot, and it keeps the heat. So yeah, anyone who's got a leather chair like me will probably be enjoying the chance to get out of it for a couple of minutes.
Yes, well, speaking of, it gives us an opportunity as commentators to have a quick break, get out of our chairs, and prepare ourselves for race 2. So we will do that now, and on the other side we'll grab the predictions for race 2. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Interlagos. I believe my co-commentator's still just having a bit of a break, but looks like we're getting the warm-up lap underway a little bit quicker than we were expecting, as they skipped the warm-up session from its normal 10 minutes. So that means I guess I'll go through the grid. Already, are you back with us?
I am back. Yes. Sorry, I was chopping up both my drinks there.
Fair cop. It looks like they're on their warm-up lap. So do you want to take us through the grid?
I will if my computer let me get in front. There we go. So yes, Xeris, I suppose, surprising no one back on pole for race 2. Brilliant drive, but very sort of lonely drive there at the front to keep that come out of that pole to a win. It's a very aggressive tyre warming, very quick tyre warming up going for the entire field there. Second, Berto, who's been doing a very good job across the season, did a good job that race, especially towards the end, to hold off Burton Foley, who's just behind him in third. He had the pace to catch up to Berto, especially towards the end when the tyres went off, so we could potentially see some battle between these two as the race goes on. Goofball in fourth, started the race third and only lost a spot to Foley, and yeah, we're interested to see whether he can potentially go one up again on the pace and get back ahead of Foley. So good battle there between those three. Then so going back to the next battle pack, started that was D-Smash. It has some good pace behind him. Sam Smith and Madbird also in a good little battle. Roadhog unfortunately fell away at the end, but not far enough to fall into the clutches of Nether, who recovered after an early off. Bagsy sitting in 10th.
Just spinning on cue, just like Foley did in our first
Bagsy in 10th. Resist in 11th. Hopefully a good recovery from him in this race. And Tyrol 12th with the smallest gap we've seen from him back towards the rest of them this season.
And that is the grid. So they make their way onto the grid with Roadhog. Actually, it was more of a half spin onto the infield of the grass. Wasn't the full spin we saw from Reg and Foley in the first race, but nonetheless, very amusing all the same. So horns beeping. We're about to get racing for the second time here in round 7 in Interlagos. Looks like a good launch from Bagsy, who one of the QV cars, I believe, which was Roadhog, a little bit tardy off the line, and Foley is up into really second place, up into third place, and looks like Xeris is coming under a fair bit of pressure from Berto for the lead of the race as well, so that looks like he's close enough to have a go down in the straight, which we didn't see in race 1.
No, a good launch there from Berto to keep pace with Xeris, but yeah, he is. Speaking of people coming in, Foley's jumped him there.
Didn't expect that one at all. Oh, it's all kicking off behind, a few cars wide. I know a lot of them take that line, but there were a few cars crossed up. Sam Smith, I think, who was challenging there. He's challenging Goofball Antics. Meanwhile, D-Smash has managed to get past Goof, and Madbird up behind Sam in a replay of what we were seeing in race 1, but they're all tight, and mistakes will be punished severely. And that, speaking of, that's a little bit of a mistake for Sam Smith. Gets it all crossed up, nearly lets 2 cars through. Does let 2 cars through as Bagsy sneaks his way past, as well as Madbird. And Nether's behind, looking to pick up the crumbs now. Sam Smith fights back, and Bagsy is forced to yield there, but he's still got the inside for the next corner. They're going to go through these corners side by side. Goofball Antics absolutely sideways as well. What a fantastic camera angle. Loving it.
Yeah, there's something we missed in all that. Roadhog dropped back somewhere as well, but a couple of guys got some brilliant starts. Goofball, another one that didn't seem a good start back here with keeping D-Smash company, but he looks like he's might not be doing that too much longer. He's up on the back of him, he's coming around the outside now over the start-finish line.
And the trouble with the slipstream here is that there's a good chance the car ahead of you has also got a slipstream, so it kind of negates it all, as it looks like Sam Smith is losing the position there to Nether, who's lost it. It's the same place where he lost it in the first race, and he's dropping down. Unfortunately, he couldn't save it. He was so close to saving it, And in the end, he's dropped off the back of this paddle. He's still there. He's a little bit closer than he was after his mistake in race 1, as we now see Samaj putting Goofball Antics under pressure there. Goofball Antics looks like he has fought back initially after that, after losing the place to Samaj. He has managed to get the position back, but he's not keeping it up without a fight. Meanwhile, behind, we've got 4 cars all occupying the same piece of tarmac.
Yeah, we're having the same thing up the front. We've got another 3 cars battling. Foley and Berto are not leaving Xeris a chance to run away just yet. Foley's over the back of Xeris' bumper, and Berto's just hanging there, a little bit back on the 2, but if anything is to go off there, he'll be the ready to beneficiary from it.
Yeah, that's what we were hoping for, a battle for the lead, and looks like we've got it so far. Very, very early stages, of course, but the race splitting off into a couple of groups, but all of those groups fighting each other fiercely, and it really just does show how these races tend to evolve themselves into groups that keep together, they keep in touch as a result of that slipstream, and ever more evident when you've got a long straight like this.
Yeah, I think what we're finding is Foley's managing to catch them to the middle sector because he's got the better speed there, and then he's just hanging the slipstreams down the straight. Speaking of, though, he's about to step out of it. He's not far off. He has just put himself into the lead there, but I'm not sure how long it's going to stay. There's Xeris diving back down the inside into the first of the centre S's.
Yeah, it's difficult to know where you want to be positioned in these races. You just want to be able to keep with Xeris, because it's going to be incredibly difficult for anyone to break away from Xeris. You kind of have to be working together with Berto, who's just fallen off a few car lengths in the last few moments. You need to get past and then have Berto fight him, almost, selflessly, to allow the car that's got past for the lead to jump away. But Foley's not able to make the pass stick here. He's having a few goes down the inside, but Xeris is able to hang it around. And the thing is, I know from personal experience that Xeris knows ways around this track side by side like no one else. I actually had a battle with him in the Porsches in the pre-season for the previous series, which went something like that, and it was a race-long battle, which unfortunately ended when I ran out of fuel because I underfueled by a lap or 2. But in the end, I think Xeris got a lot of experience about running side by side with people around here.
Yeah, Foley's best chance to make a pass stick on him is going to be to pass him on the way into sort of turn 5, so turn 6, turn 7, somewhere around there, where he can then use the entirety of the middle sector to push a gap on him, because he's caught him back up pretty healthily. Actually, he hasn't dropped too far from him. He's sitting right in a zone where he's probably leaving a gap just in case Xeris breaks early or something, and then he gets caught with him. But now he's back on the straights, and he's having second shot in 2 laps. This time he's gone to the inside. And
we didn't see it, but Samaj has had a moment somewhere, and he's dropped way off the back of Goofball Antics and behind Madbird, so he's in that same sort of battle pack that we saw him in during race 1.
Yeah, back that far. Sam and Smith now up on the back of Samaj. Yeah, it looks like the battles from race 1 are set to continue in the middle of this race.
Foley on the inside of turn 4. It's so difficult to make it stick here, especially since you seem to be able to make the track very, very wide there. Xeris, it looked like he tried to sort of let Foley go and undercut him, but Foley kind of cut off that route for him.
Yeah, I think what happened was Xeris tried to cut back in and try to immediately get some sort of speed out of it or whatever, and Brendan Foley backed off or just wasn't quite past where he wasn't as fast past him as Xeris expected. So he pulled in, and they just slight clash of wheels, and he was forced to sort of pull back out a little bit to actually make sure he cleared him before he pulled back in again. So a little clumsy, I suppose, almost in a way from Xeris, but I would say that helped Foley, but they're back in the same position as they were a lap ago. So I think Foley's possibly doing a little sort of data mining, some learning here and there and here and there, and if he can keep track of him through here, which he can, even onto the into the latter stages of the race, we might see him pop something at the end once he's got all the tricks in the book that Xeris will throw him and he knows how to counter all of them. But yeah, we don't know whether that'll happen. But that remains to be seen.
You can't afford a single mistake with that strategy. He's got to, in order to stay with Xeris, you can't afford a single lapse, because once he's gone, he's gone. And he needs to just keep doing this, keep sort of unsettling Xeris and putting him slightly off of where he wants to be,
which all affects his lap time. It means that the guys behind don't get dropped off to the same sort of at the same sort of rate as they did before. He's managed to get by this time, but Xeris, of course, he's going to get the slipstream as Foley's had a bit of a wild centre S corner. He's handfuls of opposite lock there, not quite to the extent that we've seen from him in qualifying. Meanwhile, Berto is actually coming under pressure from goofball antics behind. We can see the 3-car battle over 5th place going on behind as Xeris looks up the inside of turn 4. Now it's up to Foley here to try and carry the speed around the outside, which gives him the inside into this uphill right-hander. And I think Xeris has just got himself clear enough that he can take the favoured line. That's a great job from Xeris. That just shows how he can extract just that 1% more, and it gives him the track position.
Yeah, I think it's almost scaring away that he can drive with a safety margin so as quick as he is, because it means that he can eat in that a little bit if he wants to get a pass done in a way that people are pushing into a red zone for them. But yeah, I think he is Foley's slowly getting there. He did actually pass Xeris at an early point on the straight in that last lap, so they got to be reckoned he was just closer to him out of the last corner.
Wide in the background there for Berto, but thankfully for him it wasn't one of the parts of the track where there's grass on the exit of the corner, so he didn't lose that much time.
Yeah, Berto though, I was just looking back to Goofball. Goofball's still closing in him though, so I reckon if this pace making up, there's a word for it, continues, yeah, we might see a 2-car battle for first and a 2-car battle for third.
Possibly. We'll see how fiercely they fight one another. I thought Foley had enough speed to overtake Xeris there, but he just sort of the top speed stalled a little bit, and he didn't get the job done down into turn 1. Maybe that was intentional to try and get a run at him down this straight. The guys behind are fighting fiercely.
Yeah, this track in a way you don't have a lot of chance to. That was yeah. You don't have a lot of chance to get speed up and get a pass done on the straight before you hit the line. It's really about the line where you change position. It's similar in a way to my race I did at Phillip Island, where Sandow's a better example, where you want to be last. Yeah, you want to get your pass done on the back straight. So by the time you come around to the front and you get over the start-finish line, you're ahead, and there's not enough room there for the person behind you to get a slipstream. So similar thing here, you want to have the lead coming out of the second straight to win the race, not down the front straight.
Depending, of course, what the margin is. Here, Xeris has what in tennis would be called a mini break. They're in the tiebreaker, and he's 3 points ahead with the next serve, to use tennis terms, because he's just slightly got to the point where he's nearly out of range of Bretton Foley in terms of the slipstream. If he can manage to extend that any more, then he may well have broken the charge of Brenton Foley. But if Bretton Foley has a really strong next lap and gets himself back into it, then maybe Foley still has a chance. But it's oh so close here. The great thing from Xeris' point of view is that he's getting some airtime.
Yeah, exactly. As I said in the first race, he wasn't going to get any, but he's actually getting some now, thanks to Foley. But all Foley's going to do in this next lap, and especially in the middle sector, because that's where he's strongest, is just nail it. Just at least for this lap, we'll get as best as he can out of it, because that's where he catches on Xeris. And if he can't catch him through there this lap, yeah, he's already at the tangly edges of his slipstream. He gets any further out and he just won't catch anything, and then Xeris is gone.
I think if anything, it looks like he might have just marginally closed the gap on this lap. It's no wonder.
Yeah, I agree with that. He does look like he's gone a little bit closer, but yeah, it's all going to be down to how he does this middle sector now, I think.
It's all very, very tiny margins. Xeris at the fastest lap of the race on the previous occasion, the 46.8. And Foley's done a 46.85, so it's not much. Just on the previous lap, Foley did a 47.3, so that's where he's dropped about half a second, and it's just that sort of dropped him down. Looking at the sector times, though, this time around, personal best from Xeris by the looks of it, and so too Foley, pretty much matching each other 10th for 10th.
Yeah, we're interested to see the split now as they've both exited the second sector.
It certainly will. and it's a purple sector for Xeris, and Foley, it's funny, it doesn't actually look like he's losing time, but he's just lost another half a tenth there, and it's just these tiny little itty-bitty tiny bits of time that they cost you once you drop out of contention. Maybe you have a bad lap because you're a little bit disheartened by doing your best lap of the race and the guy ahead does a better one, and then you have a worse lap, and then all of a sudden you're completely out of contention even though you've been living with his pace for the majority of the race up to that point, and then gradually the gap just eats out further and further to the end of the race after your spirit's been broken.
Yeah, exactly. There's possibly a psychological factor to Xeris pounding out best lap times, which normally isn't a thing that's affecting him, because by this point he is normally disappeared from any other cars in the field. But Foley is still just there, and there might be some mind games going on with Xeris. I mean, he'll be trying to get the best lap times anyway to try and run away from him, but him setting best lap after best lap, and Foley not putting his name there like he was the first time around, that was first race was his chance to stamp, hey, I'm quick tonight, but he hasn't had a chance to stamp it in this race, and it might be, I don't think it will be, but it could potentially be meaning that Foley might not be pushing as hard because it's just like, well, Xeris is faster than me and I'm not as fast as him, and it might get to the point where he thinks I can't change that, which he could, but yeah, it's all the mind games potentially as well.
What he is seeing though is he's seeing Xeris slide a fair bit in front of him, which is interesting. We're not used to seeing Xeris be quite that tail happy in these cars, which is normally what we see Foley doing. But just to add to that point, Foley's not driving slow. He was only 0.2 of a second slower than Xeris on the previous lap, far and away the second fastest man on the circuit. Pretty much everyone else is in the 47s. Birdo's probably the only one who's sort of able to live with that kind of pace, but maybe not quite as consistently.
Foley's just put a fastest lap down,
so there you go. He wasn't.
Yeah, I'm eating my hat now.
Second fastest. Now he's the fastest, and it didn't look like he was slow on that lap. He was just gradually gaining. Xeris had a scrappy lap by his standards. I mean, we're talking about 2-3 of a second over 1:45. It's not much.
No.
That he was slower than his own personal best, but Foley stepped it up, and that is the return serve that Xeris wasn't expecting.
But I think maybe what we're seeing, and I'm based on previous record of how accurate my statements are, I'm going to probably be entirely wrong again. But it's possible that Foley hanging right up on Xeris's bumper, at least the distance he's at, is potentially what caused the slide from Xeris, in that he's just having so much more work now, even though there's no one right there in his mirrors. He's having so much more work now to keep first place rather than simply having a clear air behind him. That and the heat, which we mentioned earlier, it might really be sort of endurance racing, Bathurst 1000, no cool suit stuff for Xeris right now.
Very true. I wonder if Xeris is thinking about that record. 8 wins on the trot. If he makes it 9, he equals his own record way back in 2016.
I think it might weigh on him. I think in the grand scheme of things, it's probably very minor right now. But Xeris is, from previous experience talking to Xeris, it doesn't seem, it's not like he's overly animated at wins. He'd be happy with getting with tying that record and then beating that record, no doubt. But I think his focus at this point is just on this race. Yeah, that might be playing on his mind as well.
The thing is now, Xeris has set the fastest lap of the race, and Brenton Foley has got a track cut somewhere, because in the middle sector he didn't register a time, whereas Xeris set the fastest middle sector of the race. But Foley continued his charge from the previous lap with the fastest first sector, so it's an arm wrestle right now. And the important thing from Foley's point of view is that he has got himself back in that slipstream, which was what he needed to do, because it just makes his job just a little bit easier from this point onwards. Xeris has just got to nail it from here.
Yeah, Foley's making very gratuitous, very gratuitous use of the curbs, which is probably what's contributed to his track cut. But I'm not sure how many we get. I know he gets more than one, and I think he's using them now. He was 0.7 back from Xeris at the line a couple of laps ago. The last time around, he was only 0.3 back. He lost a couple of tenths through the first couple of corners, but he is right on his bumper, and this is with slightly worn tyres, slightly warmer drivers, this is the same racing we saw at the start of this race. So yeah, if Foley can keep it as close to mistake-free as he can get it and pressure Xeris, we might see a change for good here.
Quite possibly. Goofball Antics on this lap has set the fastest first sector of the lap, but he's come a cropper somewhere because he's lost a huge amount of time to Birdo. I think that first sector, purple sector, was probably assisted by a slipstream, as too was Foley's a little while ago. But here we go, Foley's got the run on Xeris with the slipstream down the pit straight, with Xeris going down to the inside. Has Xeris got anything left? That's the fastest lap of the race for Bretton Foley, who is almost in the lead, but Xeris denies him by going deeper under brakes than Foley did. But the thing is, he's now got Foley absolutely tucked up underneath him as they go down to the longest straight, or the second longest straight, I guess, if you count the pit straight from Yunsao down to turn 1 as an entire straight, because that distance is probably longer. But it's now Foley on the inside. Xeris is going to try to hang it around the outside and carry the speed, and he's pretty good at doing that. We've seen him do it a number of times tonight already. And what that does is it gives you the inside to Ferradura, but he's managed to lose out, actually. But he goes down the inside. I wasn't expecting that. Gracious me. Foley kind of opened the door, and I don't think he was expecting Xeris to just walk by it.
Ooh, bit of contact there. I was going to say it doesn't look like Foley's doing what I was going to suggest, but all he really needs to do at this point is not say back it off, but all he has to do is sit behind Xeris in enough of a position where he can repeat what he did the last lap, but another lap in a bit's time. All he needs to do is be first across the line. Doesn't have to be first anywhere else. I mean, a good example of that is Chaz Mostert. I think 2014 Bathurst 1000. He didn't lead a single lap that race, but he led the last half of it, and that was enough. All he needs to do is lead the 100 meters between the last kink, really, in the pit entry, pit wall start, and the start of the start finish line, and he would win this race. So he won't get it this lap, but all he could be doing is just setting it up for next lap.
Yeah,
one lap left.
Final lap of the race, and interestingly enough, Xeris still led across the line on this occasion as they went across. Now Foley goes through into the lead. Is Xeris setting this up strategically like a Moto3 race to get that slipstream down the main straight? You've got to be absolutely on the bonnet of the car. Sorry, your bonnet has to be absolutely on the rear of the car ahead. I don't know that Xeris is going to think that strategically. I think he's going to try and blast past here. The interesting thing is that the inside here gives you the outside for the uphill right-hander at Ferradura. I think Foley's happy to let him go. I think he wants to be second out of Jung Sao so that Xeris is the one under pressure with the slipstream. This is going to be oh so close. This is I think the first time really that we've seen this sort of equalised arm wrestle, this battle throughout the race. We don't know which way it's going to go, and it's the final lap, and we still don't know who's going to win. Xeris desperately wants to hang on to get that win record, and whether or not he knows that exists, I don't know. A little bit of a moment there for Foley. Xeris leading by a nose.
Yeah, it's still so bloody close. Look, man, a little bit of a slide there for Xeris as well. I think he's eating into his safety margin right now, as Foley would be as well. Yeah, we've only got a couple more corners left to decide this race, and it's still anyone's game.
It most certainly is. Just one real corner left, and Foley is perfectly positioned. Xeris wants to get himself the absolute perfect run to the line. Is Foley close enough? I dare say he is. What sort of blocking are we going to see from Xeris coming down to the line? We saw the last time they did this. Oh, there's bump drafting. That seems a bit strange. I don't know that Foley wants to do that.
No, he can't. He can't.
No, Xeris has got it. Xeris has got it. He's going to have it as Foley's coming along side. It's absolutely neck and neck. And Xeris by a nose. 2/100ths of a second. Xeris got it. It's almost like Foley shot himself in the foot there. I thought he had that. I reckon he just bump drafted him unintentionally for a split second, and that gave Xeris the impetus. He has equalled his winning record. 9 on the trot. Sorry, it's not 9 on the trot. What am I talking about? Because it's got to be an even number.
It's 8 on the trot.
Oh no, sorry, yes, because the second race in Play City, it is 9 on the trot, and that equals his record from race number 6 right through to race number 13. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 9 wins on the trot. What a finish!
Yeah, that was pretty hardest fought win, and I'm not sure. I mean, that would be a great race for Foley, but he needed the speed to be able to pull out on Xeris in a way that Xeris couldn't block, and he just didn't have it. How do you potentially? It's all what ifs nearly at this stage. It's all hypotheticals. But had he maybe been a little further back, he could have got a bigger slipstream speed difference and then slingshotted past him rather than just trying to move alongside him, because Xeris, unless Xeris was confident on something, he wasn't even a bar of it. Xeris had worked just as hard for this win as Foley had. So, yeah, he needed a different bit of speed differential, but he didn't have it. So Xeris just moved himself across the front bumper of Foley's car, and he couldn't do anything about it. So it's a great race, but I wouldn't blame Foley for being maybe just a little filthy, either himself or Xeris, for being such an effective blocker right when he didn't need it.
Well, I think Xeris is pretty happy about the one. It was trying conditions from a temperature point of view, just like last week, but he's certainly, I mean, those sorts of races make you sweaty regardless of the temperature, so that is going to be, I think he's going to have a cold shower after this and just reflect on quite an excellent record that he's set now, and if he wins the next race, he looks set to extend that winning record, 9 on the trot. Could he make it 10?
Yeah, it's hard to say at this point. It'll be interesting to see how next week goes. If Brenton hit the same sort of speed up to Xeris, though, he's well positioned to upset that record come next week.
Well, we've got some of our podium sitters have started to filter through into the commentary box. So, Rody, do you want to take us through our podium sitters for race 1 and 2?
I'll try and give us a better shot than last week. Xeris, another 2 wins for you, and as we mentioned earlier, you're getting close to, I think you've tied or you've set a record for your most wins on the trot, but it wasn't easy for you.
Yeah, no, it certainly wasn't. I could see late in race 1 that Brenton had caught up quite a bit on everyone and had started to got his pace. So I knew race 2 would be quite interesting, and it was really interesting.
Yeah, do you want to sort of talk us through, I suppose, from your angle, that sort of last couple of corners running over the start-finish line of that last lap?
So a couple of laps before, we were both sort of testing each other to see what the strategy would be on the last corner. And I figured out that if he was inside 3/10 or so, then he'd be too close behind me, so he'd make a move early on the straight and therefore not cross the line in time, which is what I sort of aimed for on the last lap. I backed out on the last 2 corners just to make sure he was within that 3/10, so that it'd be like it ended up, basically.
Yeah, we were discussing the prospect of had the gap been bigger, you want to go bigger slipstream, and that seems to have weighed on your mind as well in the decision to give up a bit of time towards the last couple of corners to then gain the position as such when you got to the line. But some great racing there, and you're I believe you're either at a record or you're about to get a record for your most wins, or beat your own record for the most wins in a straight. So fingers crossed for you next week that you continue to add to that.
That's pretty fucking sweet. It's French. But I think the results sheet will tell a different story from what actually happened, because I think there's been a lot of very close races, very close calls. It certainly isn't as easy as it looks.
Absolutely, it isn't. But yeah, thanks for joining us, Xeris. Good racing.
Thank you.
On to Brenton, and you had a great recovery, I suppose, across the night. You didn't get a lot of speed out of practice, and qualifying didn't quite go your way, but it seemed to work your way out from there.
Yeah, practice, I just couldn't get the car how I wanted it, and then qualifying made a change, and it was the wrong direction, so I made the opposite change for the race, and it helped a lot. And yeah, as you said, race 1, I basically tried to just get as close to the front as I could for race 2, and as always, it was a lot of fun racing really, really close to Xeris.
So were you just again? I look like especially for portions of that second race, you would just be sort of testing each other, working out where your minute advantages and disadvantages were. How were things going for you across that last lap? Was it really stressful in the cockpit?
As Zirus said, the few laps before, we were kind of both thinking, strategizing on how we were going to tackle that last lap. I wanted to be behind him, and I knew that if I was in front, I can't hold him behind me for too long. And I know from the couple of times that I'd tried it, that if I pull out on the outside at that first little kink on the straight, I normally lose too much pace going the long way around. So I tried to tuck him behind for as long as possible, but I gave him the tiniest little bump draft. It really just ruined it for me. So I jumped back in the draft and ducked out, and it was just too late. It was great fun, though.
Yeah, it was great racing to watch. Thanks to yourself, Zirus, I think, has had the most airtime he's had in any of the races so far. So, but same to you. I hope that you can bring that sort of pace out again next week, because that was it's always been the mid-pack to bring out some great battles, but it's good to see a good battle for the lead as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I don't know what else to say. It's just heaps of fun. I just need to start more up the front for race 1.
Yeah, that would definitely help. Good racing to you also, Brenton, and good luck next week.
Thank you.
And then, Berto, you had a bit of I wouldn't say a quiet race, but relative to the front to, I started again. You were involved in a battle with Foley towards the end of race 1. You did actually end up, I'm going to remember because I think you did actually end up losing out to Brenton, but apart from that, a good solid, God damn my words, a good solid sort of rack of points across the 2 races for you.
Yeah, it was good. The second in the first race and third in the second race. Lots of practice again, just trying to get the eye in and trying to find a setup that worked. It was completely different to last week. But yeah, pretty quiet first race, and then second race I just didn't find grip for more than half the race, so couldn't keep up. Yeah,
so I suppose from where you were sitting, especially in the second race, was Goofball ever a threat? Because we saw him close up and then he dropped back at one point, but was he ever sort of a threat from where you were sitting?
He was, and he was racing really well. I kept fluffing that middle sector. But then, I think it was around about 7th or 8th lap, he lost it coming out of the bulb, and that gave me the breathing space to break the toe. So from there, I was able to build a bit of a gap.
Yeah, well, that was so that was as I said, sort of a quiet race, but it was a good race, and it's a good sort of quiet haul of points that will help you as you go on. But great racing from you, Bodo, and good luck for next week.
Yeah, no, thank you. It was a great night.
Alrighty, that's all our drivers. Back to you, Stairs.
Thank you very much. Well, let's have a quick update of the points situation following that round, and of course, 2 wins again from Zirus. He started on pole both times and fastest lap in the first race, but Brenton Foley getting the fastest lap in race number 2 tonight, breaking Zirus's streak of 8 in a row, and that's Brenton Foley's 3rd fastest lap of the series. 345 points Zirus now has to Brenton Foley's 227. Berto is sort of cementing his position up there in 3rd place in the championship on 190 points from Goofball Antics in 4th. Interestingly enough, the top 4, in fact the top 7 in that particular race, in race 2, finishing in the position that they currently hold in the championship, with Goofball Antics 4th, Sam Smith 5th, Madbird 6th, and D-Samaj 7th. Just confirming my numbers to make sure that that is indeed true. Yes, Madbird getting the better of D-Samaj in race 2, extending that points lead, and Sam Smith missing 3 races, so he's doing actually quite well, considering he's missed 3 races, to still be holding down 5th position in the championship. Resist 9th place tonight, and he's 8th in the championship ahead of Bagsy. Lewis Wedding drops down to 10th in the championship after missing his 4th round in a row. Roadhog down there in 11th place ahead of Nether. Tyrrell in
13th and Pablo in 14th.
Yeah, it's once again they're still keeping quite close some of the point gaps towards the end, but yeah, some of the front runners just aren't open a gap up to the rest of the field. But yeah, some solid racing tonight. Yeah, hopefully get it all again next week.
Certainly hope so. It was a great slipstreaming battle between Xeris and Brenton Foley that we saw tonight, and that was what we were hoping for at the beginning of the night. We know that these wide open circuits afford that opportunity. We saw something similar at Virginia International Raceway. Bit of a different prospect next week with Cadwell Park. Lots of undulation, and I think Xeris is going to love that circuit. I'm pretty sure that was the one that he chose for this championship. So that is going to be, it's going to be, if nothing else, a spectacle from a standpoint of seeing the cars dip and dive over those crests and those down into those valleys. So looking very much forward to that one. In 7 days' time, we'll be back here at the exact same time next week to bring you all of that. In the meantime, have an absolutely fantastic week. Try and stay cool if you're being affected by the ongoing heat wave. My name's Stairs. I've been joined by Ben Rhodes in commentary. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Bye for now.